On today's show, we have artist and illustrator Taarika John. Taarika is an illustrator who's based in Mumbai, and she's going to share her process and the way she sort of goes about her freelance life and her career as an illustrator.
Welcome, Taarika. How does it feel to be on the best design podcast in India?
It's great, man. I'm touched. To be here.
We are very glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Just looking at the body of work that you have, it's very evident that you have this emotional connect with not only your art, but the narrative that drives it. Also, it's very, very evident that you come from this Malayali background, and being a Malayali myself, like, it's a very natural thing for our parents to sort of push us to do these extracurricular activities apart from like happening to excel in academics. So was art always something that your mom or your dad pushed you to do when you were young, or is it something that you picked up on the go?
So I don't think it was like specifically art that they focused me on, but like you said, we had tons of extracurriculars and we had like all kinds of projects to do. So my mom had this thing that every time we had a weekend from school or we had school vacation, basically to kind of keep me occupied, so she would give me a project. Okay, like she would assign me a topic. She'd be like ancient Egypt, Africa, like just Africa, the whole continent. And those days we didn't have like that much internet. You know, like internet started, but not really.
Yeah.
So I had all these DK books, and then the whole like holiday I would sit and research on the books, like and I had to paraphrase. I couldn't like copy stuff from the books.
Right.
So I had to basically make her these projects where I would make like little books with like original artwork and paraphrased writing because I couldn't copy. I had to write it in my own words. So I feel like those days I didn't really think of. Actually, I want to be a writer for most of my like youth years.
Right.
And it's only like towards 11th, 12th that I was like, oh, graphic design. Maybe I can be a designer. But I mean, now in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, okay, I can see that I was a content creator from a very young age.
For the Malayali alphabet book which you made, so was there some sort of inspiration from how you were doing all of this in your childhood? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I think the common inspiration would be my parents and the fact that they are kind of hard on me about these things. And if I have a good idea, then they don't like cut me any slack. And they're like, why are you not completing this idea? Like, please continue to work on it. Like, here's a deadline. And if I don't have a client for a personal project, my mom will be the client. She'll like pretend I'm the client. She'll give me a deadline and like set me a brief and all. So I think the common thing in all my projects is that my parents like
Push you.
basically push me
Right.
all the time. Like they don't allow me any free time.
And it also kind of blew up the project quite a bit. So, and it was also well received by a lot of non-Malayali viewers.
Right.
So did you expect it to blow up the way it did?
Not at all. Like I was telling Karan earlier, I don't think I was even on Instagram those days. So like even this concept of like spreading your work online, like it was kind of new to me. But my parents had encouraged me that since I made this whole series and it was the first time I'd worked on a series, so they told me that, you know, like work on marketing it to people, like you gotta sell yourself. But also there was so many people writing to me, and like not for anything but just to be like, I saw this project, and so I had 26 characters, right, one for each alphabet.
Right.
So sometimes it's like, oh, like this character reminds me of myself, or it's like some person in my family who used to like always do like this thing that's in this poster, so there were even non-Malus who were telling me about Malu people that they know. You know, like I know this Malu friend, he always does this, like he loves Putter, like Patros, or like, you know, like something random. So for me, I think that kind of changed things for me, and it kind of gave me a little like self-confidence that I was like, okay, like maybe I can be an illustrator, you know, because that was a conflicted time for me. I didn't know if I should be a graphic designer or if there's really a future in illustration for me.
Right.
So I think that kind of gave me a shift in perspective that like I could reach people and I could connect with other people's stories, kind of hear something from someone else's life, and I think that's kind of fulfilling in the artistic life, right? Like that someone remembers something from
Right.
I don't know, I think Instagram changed a lot of things for artists, like especially independent artists. I think even people who aren't doing, I mean, so many artists that we follow on Instagram are not doing this full time. You know, there's a bunch of people who are really, really good, but are doing this on the side because like they can't find a way to make it work full time.
Yeah, and it's a great place for resource also. Like I'm sure I wouldn't know half the artists I know if it wasn't for Instagram, and which also influenced the work that I do and that all of us would be doing.
So there's something that both of us have in common, that we've grown up in a bunch of cities. Like when I was growing up, I sort of like, my dad kept moving around a lot. And like I guess I've grown up in like 4 or 5 cities, and each city sort of has some sort of impact on me which sort of turned me into this, what I am today. And I feel like whenever I see your work, I see like a very, very heavy Kerala influence on your work. So, would you like to just elaborate on your time in Kerala and how being there just sort of affected what you were making?
So I was like born and raised in Kerala till I went to college,
Okay.
and then I moved to like Bangalore. So I think for me, I didn't really value being in Kerala in any kind of way when I was growing up. So I was just like, oh, Cochin, small town, there's no malls here. Like, what do you do with your free time? You know, and I mean, there was nothing. Like, people had to always go out of Cochin to like get something like cool, you know.
Right.
So I don't think I really cared about it when I was there, and I spent all my like childhood years being like, when can I get the hell out of this place? You know, like, I gotta get out away from these people. And I think the moment I did go away and I started like, first I was in Bangalore, then I came to Bombay, and I started in some ways being in a small town, you're sheltered. You meet only so many kinds of people.
Yeah.
You know, you have like, and in a small town, everybody knows everybody. There's no like surprises.
That's the best part of the small town.
No, it's the worst.
I like
part of a small town. That's why I wanted to get out. I was like, I don't want to go everywhere and meet 10 people. Dude, remember when we went to Cochin? He came to my show, and we went out the first night to have a couple of beers. And I mean, there's only so many people in Cochin. So everybody who went there, they were like, Taarika, oh, you're and these guys are making fun of me. They're like, oh, you're some celebrity here. Like, oh, so many people want to talk to you. I was like, no, man, there's no other new people here. You know, they're just excited to meet. They're like, you have to keep saying hi to each other.
But shifting to different cities and like seeing different things around you, did it also influence your style in any way?
I don't think so much like shifting the cities as such. I guess like more exposure to different artists, like seeing different kinds of work.
Right.
I would say that's more of an influence. But I think shifting cities, one, it kind of gave me a shift in perspective because I started seeing different kinds of people and I had so many new perspectives to deal in. And a lot of my Kerala-based work was because I suddenly had this like, after the Malayali alphabet, I was like, okay, I can, there's some kind of value in working with what I know.
Right.
You know, like I don't have to feel this insecurity that I'm not creating this like fantasy, like supreme imagination kind of work. Like I'm working with something real and there's some value to that.
Right.
But so I think that kind of started where that's why I kind of went back to Kerala because I was like, okay, that's the place that I know best. Like I spent 18 years of my life there. But I think then each new city and like living in different places, kind of growing up, like I spent my childhood in Kerala, but I kind of grew into an adult in Bangalore and Bombay. So I think in that way, it did expand my practice in some way because I kind of realized that it's not just like there's something familiar in even people that are strange to you. Right?
Yeah,
I think one of the things that draws me to, like I never really have a good answer for why do you draw regular people or daily life. But I would say that the things that kind of interest me about it is that like even in Bombay though every second you see someone who's like brand new, you know, like there's always a surprise, it never stops. But I feel like seeing all those guys, like there's something interesting that catches me is that we're all different but we're all kind of the same. You know, like everybody's waiting on the street for a friend who's late or like yelling at the rickshaw guy because he like pissed them off or whatever. So I don't know, I think that's the kind of thing that draws my attention in terms of like subject matter.
Right.
So we're fascinated by people, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I also realize I'm kind of a creep in this matter because I'm just like eavesdropping and like watching people every day, even from rickshaws I do it. Yeah, it's creepy. Like, oh, you saw that guy. Like,
so you're a voyeurist, basically.
Yeah, basically, it is that, and I think that's what I find most interesting about it because I feel like when someone who's a stranger catches my attention, like it's always something small, like it's maybe the way they're sitting or the expression on their face or whatever. Right. But I feel like the moment I see that and I recognize that okay, there's something abstract that I'm interested in this random person I've seen. But it also kind of feels like because my imagination takes over and I'm like, okay, why is this person sitting here? Or like, who are they upset with? Or like, what are they excited about? So it kind of gives me a chance to create a story for them, which like I love doing as a creator. And I feel like it also gives me some kind of, like it's like a momentary glance into someone else's life, right? Like when you see some, like even if you're passing someone on a rickshaw and they look really sad, like you don't know why they're actually sad. That I'll make up because like, creative liberty. But you feel something, right? Like I'm like, I noticed that person is sad. Like it caught my attention.
And you develop this whole story
with them. And that sadness stays with me, which is why I'm bothering to like make up a story about them and draw them later.
Right.
You know?
And like the fact that so many people relate to that frame you make kind of makes all of us a creep.
Because we develop our own
guys. And that's what I realized with Malayali alphabet, you know, because once I consciously was like, I'm making a series, that's what I was doing. I was being a creep. Like, I'll be driving around the car, I'll be like, I saw that guy, like, I saw that lungi, how he styled it, that color pattern, very interesting. Like, let's note that down, you know.
Right.
So there must have been like stories, right? Like, somebody notices you drawing them and they're like,
Oh man, that's always awkward. Like, either people are weirded out or they get too interested, you know, and then they come like this. And then, like, I've been in trains where, like, people have surrounded me. you know, from all
Because you're
sides.
drawing.
Yeah, and they don't say anything. They have like,
They're
even
just
if I
like-
smile, they just look and they're like, oh, very nice. And if they identify who you're drawing now, then they're finished. Because then no chance that person is like, I'm getting away with this description.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that person, like I'm looking at you,
Yeah.
let me draw you Karan, like, nose, like that. It's creepy, but then they'll all look and they'll point at each other like,
That guy.
that guy, yeah. See, look.
So a lot of your work is like very photograph-like. Whenever I see it, I always see like, oh, this could easily classify for a photograph. So is it like, do you see those as frames and you just capture it in your brain, or do you actually are you a photographer as well and you like take photos and maybe go back home and work on it? How do you go about it?
So it's a mix, I would say, because usually when I see a person, there's something about the body language that catches my attention.
Okay.
So it kind of depends on where I am. Usually I try to carry a sketchbook. So if I can, then I try to, like, even if it's a stick figure, because sometimes it's just a pose that you want, you know, someone's leaning in a wall a certain way, or they have their leg up on a stool or whatever. If I don't have that, and if I have the time, then I try to like grab a picture as soon as I can, like if I'm moving around. But a picture is a little more awkward to get. Sometimes I get good pictures, and then I have good reference material to go back to. Like if it's something that's really specific, I try to sneak around and get a picture.
Okay.
But a lot of times I end up making notes because I find that the most efficient. Because if I don't have the ability to take a picture or draw, then I just take the notes app, and like my entire phone has like a folder where I just write, like, I write a full description, like lady standing on the corner of the street, mid-50s, wearing brown kurta and short tights. Like, I get into a like super detailed this thing, and then I try to create a description of what I found interesting. So when I go back to my notes, then I kind of remember.
You work on
So
those.
yeah, I have those notes, because then like I feel like that note kind of helps me to remember what caught my
Aspects.
attention
Right.
about them. Then I have that liberty. But if I manage to get a photo, like those guys, the men at work, I had like some 25 photos.
Right,
you know,
right.
because the like pulling of the Chinese net is complicated.
Right,
Something
right.
like that, like as many, like I had a bunch of sketches and then I had a bunch of photos, and then I created the composition like using a combination of all of those. Like
Right. The
each
best
guy was
poses,
yeah,
the
the
most
best
energy.
poses, yeah.
Amazing. So, just to set context, Taarika studied at Srishti School of Art and Design in Bangalore, and that's also probably where Nishant and I also met her, and we got to know that she's this amazing illustrator. So, we were always fascinated by the fact that at that point Srishti had the opportunity that they gave to students to pick their own courses, and we could experiment with the course that we could pick. So why was illustration your route or the choice that you went with? Why not animation? Why not like graphic design?
So when I started out, when I joined Srishti, I went in as a graphic design student, and that's kind of the role that I saw myself fulfilling. I was like, okay, I'll be a graphic designer now. But over time, like I kind of realized, or at least it was pointed out to me by well-meaning faculty, that whatever, and Srishti's got a little liberal arts angle to it, you know, like you can do courses about sociology suddenly in the middle of this. So like I was doing all kinds of random things in the first 2 years, like anything that was interesting, I was like, I did sociology, politics, like people and politics, like all kinds of crap. But then faculty started kind of pointing out to me that they were like, you know, whatever kind of course you do, you somehow find your end result is illustration oriented. Like you're always bringing drawing into it in some way, and you should think about that. And then eventually I had people like my faculty were telling me on my face that like, please stop wasting time and just focus on being an illustrator. You know, like this is the way to go. So I think initially I spent a lot of time trying to experiment with topics that I was interested in and trying out a couple of mediums in the first 2 years. But then I kind of realized that the mode of expression that I'm most comfortable with and like what I enjoy doing most, which is storytelling, and I always want to like tell a story about anyone, even if it's imaginary. So there I kind of eventually realized that okay, I think drawing is the medium that works for me, and this is what I should try to like hone better. You know, instead of doing it by chance that I happen to be drawing in all my projects, I should instead focus on the fact that I'm drawing and do it better.
Right.
So I think towards the second half of Srishti, I started consciously trying to, like, even if it wasn't a specific illustration course, it's something that would enhance the overall like direction that I was going for.
So have you thought of working with some other medium to convey your story? Because in your work, like the story is the most powerful element, and even like Jayesh said, you know, it reminded him of like a photography. So have you thought of maybe, you know, conveying the same message idea or?
Yeah, definitely. I think I started out with drawing because that's what I'm most comfortable with. But I think recently I've been starting to feel more restrictions in the sense that usually when I'm creating an illustration, I create one frame, right? And for a while, I mean, I still do find that exciting, but there is like some excitement in trying to tell a moment of a story in one frame by creating a single illustration, right? Like that's what is that one moment in time that you freeze in? Like what is every aspect of that image doing? So I still think that's exciting, but I also feel like over the years, like more and more of the kind of ideas that I have for personal projects and the kind of stories that I want to tell, I find them becoming more extensive and needing some other kind of medium where I'm realizing that the single frame illustration is not going to do justice to these stories, you know?
Right.
So in terms of experimentation, I mean, like I've done a couple of GIFs on here, there. Like I hack my way around it, like depending on what I can do. But what I'm hoping to work on now is that I try to figure out what are the mediums in which I can tell like bigger stories and do justice to the stories. Because I feel like right now my limitation is that I don't know the right medium to tell the stories that I want to tell. You know, like this one frame is not the right thing for every story.
Correct.
Right.
So like
what I love the most is like you said the first thing was that you wanted to be a writer.
Yeah.
And like through your illustrations and everything also like you are kind of a writer because you're just telling a story.
Yeah, I think that storytelling thing, like it took me a while to like hone in on that word, but now when I look back at all of my previous work, like I can kind of see that pattern. That the thing that I had in common in all the different kinds of courses I did or the kind of projects I worked on or the people I was meeting, essentially it came down to like the thing that interests me is the story, like you know, in every form. So in that sense, I'm always open to like see where storytelling can take you.
You also spoke about like capturing that moment or telling a story in a single frame. So even I got into Srishti wanting to be an animator.
Okay.
But then I kind of explored and stuff, and the whole idea of conveying or communicating a message through say a single poster or whatever is what actually like drove me towards graphic design and like letting go of animation.
After graduating, you started working at events in a digital media agency before you started freelancing, of course. So I feel like your work is very like instinctive and very personal, what I gather from whatever we spoke till now. And working at an agency like that, like which is an events firm as well, that you're working under a lot of deadlines and like you have briefs. So how did that sort of work for you? Like, how did that work for you?
For me, what was interesting was it gave me a totally different side of like where design comes to life. Like it's not really something that I thought about working in myself before, but it's a different thing when you're working for like a brand event and then you're seeing that stuff like coming into life. Like you walk into a space and like your design has taken over the space, so to speak. So I think that kind of gave me a totally different perspective to how like and I think also working in an events company, like I did a couple of editorial things on the side, but mostly I didn't really use that side of storytelling which I was used to, where I was like drawing the story. But I still got a chance to like do storytelling in a different way, because when you have an event and you have a concept to work with or the brand has a certain story they want to tell, like that's still storytelling, it's just a different way that you're creating an experience to tell a story. So I don't know, I think it still worked out. Like.
And do limitations help you get to the final product?
Yeah, I think limitations are good in some ways. Like if it's a personal project also, sometimes I want to give myself a restriction, but at least in ideation stage, I try to be free. But I think in terms of a client project, when you're doing a commission piece, it definitely helps to have restrictions, because I think more often than not, a project does have limitations, but sometimes maybe the client doesn't realize this is a limitation as such. But I think limitation helps you to come into a more focused design product. Even an illustration or a work of art is not like unless you're posting it, like putting it up in a gallery or like for yourself, that it's a communication, right? Like there's an objective to be made by it. Like so in that sense, I think I wouldn't call it a limitation. I would call it a good brief. I think a good brief is what you really need. Like,
clients.
And
it's way easier. I mean, it's easy to say make this pop, as opposed to sort of adding like words or maybe even taglines.
So did this like set a premise for you when you started freelancing?
I think I had a very different work ethic when I started freelancing, because I mean, whatever kind of company you work at the end of the day, I think like whatever you care about your job, at some level you can detach when you go home, because like even if you're responsible for a project or whatever, it's not your company, right? Like you still get your salary even if the company goes broke tomorrow, right? Like even the best worker and the hardest, most committed and sincere person, at some level, once I go home at 5 o'clock, like I'm done. No, now I come back at 9 o'clock. So I think it's not really a timing thing, but it's kind of that when you're freelancing, and essentially when you're freelancing, you're a business. You're a one-person business, but you're still a business, right? And when you are the business, then like even if it sucks that like this time I was in Goa recently, I went for a holiday that I planned for 2 months. And in the morning, I woke up like while all my friends are sleeping. I've woken up, I'm sitting in the table, I'm like sending out emails, working. And my dad called me 8:30 in the morning in Goa. So he's like, "What are you doing? Working?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm working." I was like, and he's like, "Ah, you have to send this project." I was like, "Yeah, I got to send this." Like whatever. I was like, "It's okay." Like, you know. So he's like, "What are your friends doing? Sleeping?" So I was like, "Yeah." So he's like, "So your friends are sleeping on holiday while you are up early working." And then he laughed for 5 minutes. He just laughed at me. And then he told me that he was like, "But you know, like," and I mean, I know, because my dad is also an entrepreneur. So he always used to tell me that, see, like, you get certain freedoms working on your own because you get to call the shots, and like, you can be like, "I'll work from Bali this weekend because I'm rich." Like, if you are rich, which would be nice. Or I'll work from Goa, which I can afford.
Shout out clients from Bali.
Send us to Bali, make you a beach house. But also the other side of it is that when it's your business, you have everything to lose.
Yeah.
Right? So if you need to wake up on Sunday and send an email, or if you gotta work while you're on vacation, you gotta work while you're on vacation, man. There's no two ways about it. And I think the commitment kind of changes. Like, I think I was always a sincere worker in all the jobs I've had. You can ask my previous bosses. But when I started working for myself, like, see, when everything goes well, everybody's like, "Wow, like you did this, what a great thing." But when everything goes to shit, there's nobody to blame. You can't be like, "Call that girl in marketing, she didn't email me."
It's only
you know, like it all comes on you. Like even if you have not done anything wrong, it doesn't matter. If the project has an issue, you are the sole person responsible. So I think your commitment changes in a totally different way. And if it doesn't, like, you're not going to survive too long, you know. It's going to catch up with you.
So was there a point where you realized, or you thought like, okay, now I'm going to go my own way?
So I think I knew quite early on that I wanted to like create a brand of my own, like have the ability to work on commission and like personal projects, create content, like all of that. But which is why I kind of started freelancing when I was in college. Like whatever project I could manage, like working weekends or whatever, I would do it because I wanted to get that like step into the industry. Right. So even when I first came to Bombay, I worked in a mainline ad agency. So I'd go to work in the day, then I'd come back and I'd work a couple of hours at night. Then I wake up early morning, like do 2 hours before 9 o'clock office. You know, like work weekends, like do that.
Right.
So I think, and then even when I worked like at my next job, like I tried freelancing for a couple of months in between. Then I went back to full time. So I think I spent a couple of years trying to kind of practice running the business, you know, and doing it on the side, which basically meant doing it after my day job. But I think doing it like that, which means that you have like no free time ever in your life. But that gives you like I also kind of realized after my last job that I was like, there's never going to be a perfect time. Yeah. You know, like, and my mom told me that. She was like, you are waiting for like, oh, when this is aligned and this works out and I have this much savings and so on. She said, there's never going to be a perfect time. So when you're going to start something new, it's always a risk. And you just got to, like, eventually you have to take the risk and see if it works out. Right? Like, maybe you'll fail, you won't. So I think that's why I was just like, okay, like, this time I'll go all in, even if I make no money. Like, I'll do it with no backup plan. Yeah. You know, and when you do it with no backup plan, then you have to kind of like you don't have an option then.
Right. So you had a goal and then you just worked towards it.
I did, but I also like saved money for a long time before I decided to quit my job and be like, yes, I will freelance, and which helped because for the first couple of months I had no real work. You know, like somebody calls you here there, but nothing to support me. So if I didn't have, so I didn't just be like, I quit my job, I'll be freelancer now. It didn't work like that. I did it on the side for many years. I saved money for many years, and then I quit my job and said I'm not looking back.
So in your early freelance days, you don't usually get a lot of client work, right? So did you still keep putting out your own personal content when you were not getting any client work?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always disheartening. There are still months when there are 3 months where there is no new work, no matter how many people call you. I mean, like 100 people will call you and they won't actually follow through. But I think even in the early days, I tried to keep making as much as I could, and also just not giving up in terms of trying to contact as many people as possible for work. You know, so at least when I was starting out, I don't do that as much anymore. But at least when I was starting out, anybody and everybody that I thought was even remotely interesting in any part of the country, I was sending them emails or DMs or any form of contact. and just being a stalker, like constantly messaging people, even people that I wasn't super interested, but I was like, it's okay, I just need to work with as many people as I can, because right now I'm nobody, right? Like you have no reason to trust me as a brand. Like I'm just starting out. So I think I like actively try to spend, like, I mean, it still sucks and you still feel bad and all, like, oh, like I'm gonna be broke this month or whatever. But I think the only thing that got me through was that I was relentless. Like there were plenty of people who ignored me, but there were also people who wrote back, like, I think just for my like persistence to be like, I have no opening for you right now, like I have no freelance projects, but like whatever, thank you for appreciating our work, we'll get back to you later time. And none of it probably paid off at that point of time, like I didn't get work in those 6 months, but I still today get like called by people who tell me like, I got your reference from some random person, and sometimes I don't remember, I'm like, who the hell is this person, you know, who's referred me, like where did they come from? Then I'm like, oh yeah, this guy at this magazine I wrote to like 5 years ago. What? You know, yeah, like, you know, so I think one of the things that helped me that way was that my dad had given me this tip once, that when you write a cover letter to someone, that if you are genuinely interested in working with them, there's something about their work that appealed to you, right? So you take the effort to study their work, to make a real example. So I'm like, oh, if I'm saying, oh, I really want to work with you, I really want to work with you because of this particular project or that particular project, because of this reason. You know, so I would keep editing that in like, and I would write an individual letter for each person. But I think a lot of the times that people wrote back to me, even when they didn't want to hire me, was just because they were happy that I had a genuine, like I took the time to write something specifically about their work. Like I'm not just bullshitting and being like, oh yeah, I'm a fan. Like, you know, I'm taking the time to research what you guys are actually doing on ground. Which is best. Trust me, it works.